back and forth.
Okay. Hi. It's a pleasure to be here. Usually, such a large audience is intimidating, so excuse me if I get to use to this presentation slowly. First of all, Zebra Medical Vision is quite a small company. It's a startup company started 3 years ago with a mission to enable the quality, availability, immediate and cost-effective imaging care by teaching computers to read and interpret and diagnose medical images. And why? It's not very obvious, but a lot of the data being generated right now is in healthcare system, and within the healthcare system, radiology and imaging is huge. So it's over 450 petabytes a year, and it doubles every 5 years. This means that it's extremely useful, extremely in demand, but the last bullet there is the one that is starting to be alarming, because 4 billion people worldwide are in areas where, according to the World Health Organization, are scarce with radiology talent. So they can get scans, but there's no one to read these scans. And areas where you have a radiologist needs to see about 50 studies in a regular shift, and each study is around 400 images at least. So he has 1.6 seconds to kind of narrow down 7 or 8 years of knowledge into 1.6 seconds. And that is alarming, because we're expecting these physicians to be superhuman. So the term superhuman and superhuman accuracy came about plenty of times in this conference, but we're actually expecting our physicians and our radiologists to surpass a lot of human disabilities, like attention deficit, like being able to remember everything, being able to find important, at the moment, details, and maybe potentially important details in the future. And the healthcare system needs to rapidly evolve, and within this, the imaging domain. So we are expecting them to be superhuman, but what is the adverse effects of the current situation is that the volume keeps growing. 2 billion people come into middle class, right? Hospitals are built from the ground up. We in the advanced Western society, maybe we're not feeling this very often, but in the sense of social equality and something that we would like to see, areas like Kenya, Nigeria, even China and India, Kazakhstan, they have money. It's nations that become richer and richer. They build hospitals, but there is just no ability to build a talent to gap the need versus the availability of the interpretation resource. And it requires a lot of knowledge, and it is, in a sense, a situation where maybe you have experienced yourself, lines becoming longer and longer, and 1 out of 4 patients coming into the hospital has a radiological finding that was missed. It may impact someone close in the family. So it's a very urgent problem in our mindset. And so Zebra is thinking that the industry requires a leap in capabilities. And we have seen industries that made this leap, and in the image classification and detection, segmentation, there was a huge leap in capabilities. And this is because of all the applied machine learning and all the research put into this domain and rapidly evolved with the availability of ImageNet. So Zebra went out and developed its own database with around 20 partnering hospitals. We have between 13 to 20 million scans and the associated clinical data. And this is the first part of the bridge. If you want to bridge the demand and supply, is getting the data and getting a data that represents the population exactly. There is a lot of experience in the imaging and medical imaging industry. And there is a lot of talent and a lot of excellent work that was done so far. But when you're taking these algorithms, they don't generalize well across the population. And we wanted to be able to validate and prove to ourselves and to our customers that those algorithms could work in large scale. So what would a leap in capabilities give? It will give better accuracy for patients. It will be immediate, and it could be affordable. So we are kind of democratizing the diagnostic knowledge and skill for the benefit of the patients. Providers, hospitals, healthcare organizations can now use these algorithms and these insights to initiate population management and preventive care. Because an algorithm that detects early signs of lung disease or early signs of coronary calcifications or bone density or low bone density surface out patients, and now you can initiate effective preventive treatment. So in the US alone, $18 billion a year is expensed on osteoporotic fractures, hip replacements, surgery, hospitalizations, rehabilitation, and it can be avoided by a regime of $300 medicine for the lifetime of a patient. And being able to use these algorithms both to democratize the diagnostic knowledge and surface out population at risk leads to a nice value combination where the entities that need to pay for this care can manage the risk in a better way, put the money where patients actually get benefit. So in Zebra, we have started to build a broad clinical portfolio. I'll go a bit into this, and I will try to leave some 5 or 10 minutes for questions and answers. Basically, we detect cardiovascular aortic aneurysms and pulmonary hypertension. Aortic aneurysms is when the aorta expands and it's in a risk of erupting. When it is erupted, it's too late. But you can detect these signs and save people. Pulmonary hypertension is when the heart is not functioning good enough, so the lungs actually take part and they try to suck blood in. So the pulmonary artery is enlarged. Enlarged vessels means that they can be more fragile. In bone health, we're detecting low bone density and vertebral compression fractures. In the lungs, we're detecting emphysema and chronic lung disease. And we have a project around lung cancer and nodule classification and detection. We're looking at the liver texture and detecting brain bleeds. Breast cancer is very problematic, at least I have the numbers in Israel. It's a small country, about 9 million people. Every day, 3 women die of breast cancer. This is an urgent, problematic issue that we need to solve. The imaging modality itself is difficult. It's just very difficult to diagnose breast cancer from mammography. A trained physician for every 1,000 women that are being scanned will call back for 100 women since he found something suspicious, 95 of which are perfectly fine. So he has a false positive rate of 85%. This is problematic in terms of the entire healthcare society. And if you look at this problem and you zoom in on a country like Kenya, there are 10 million women going through mammography scan, but there are 2 physicians to interpret it in the entire country. So this really, even a bad algorithm can deliver a lot of value. And in chest X-ray, we're building a suit that 50% of all radiology is X-ray, and 50% of all X-rays are chest. And there is about 100 findings in chest, and we're tackling the first 40 of which. And this is how it looks like. So a nice paradigm for applied machine learning is having an assistant. So this is exactly what we build. We build a radiology assistant that whenever scans come in, a radiologist gets automatic insights, and then he can decide how he wants to act upon it. So in some cases, it will surface out things that he might have missed. In some cases, it's really nice to get confidence on your decision by consulting with a virtual friend or an assistant. In other cases, this can actually decrease the time he needs because it provides automatic measurements, because it annotates in things that otherwise he will have to spend a lot of time doing. So these are examples of detection of compression fractures, lung nodules, coronary calcification, and so on. And this is how it looks like in his own interpretation station. So as I said, each and every algorithm can be looked at 2 ways. One is, even 3 ways. One, if I would like to initiate a screening program, okay? Screening programs are expensive, and radiology resource is even more expensive. And then many screening programs are not being initiated because it will be very expensive to go through all the images. In hindsight, all the databases of all the hospitals have these data saved for 8 and 10 years, and it's just wasting money, energy, and in disks. So reviving this data and making it actionable is, in Zebra sense, very important. And finally, I will try to touch upon some of our applied machine learning tricks. So I haven't put a lot here, just a few examples. Well, maybe I can talk you through others. But as I said, there is decades of knowledge and experience in computer vision-based medical imaging. This is something that we value, but we look at it as a way to make simpler models with better accuracy by providing better data. So if you provide a network with a good, high-quality source that has reduced most of the noise in the image, or generated a synthetic image that most of the signal in the image is the signals that you want to detect, leads to ability to write simpler model and to get to better results. And here we're detecting compression factors. So what we did is, first we segmented the vertebral column, and there is no back that is perfectly aligned, right? So we went through the spine canal and just aligned all the vertebrae nicely, one on top of the other, and we were able to cut it perfectly in the middle. And that gave the best single image out of entire volume, and most of the data on the compression fracture is captured in that image. Now, once you have this, and as a result of your segmentation and the ability to cut right in the middle, we could ignore all the pixels around and just focus on the pixels that are on vertebrae. And we didn't even need to detect specific vertebrae as long as we could label patch. And we could now generate also a lot of patches and a simple classification model with just a little bit of memory into it to detect compression fractures works very well. It is now applied in many places around the world. It's one of our best performing algorithms. And I attribute this to the fact that we didn't think deep learning can do it all. It might be able to do it, but this leads to another applied trick. Is every problem, it's easier to break it to simpler problems. So sometimes we use specialized networks that generate data that goes in to another specialized network. So the first network takes that virtual sagittal section, the perfectly aligned sagittal section of the spine, and segments the vertebrae. To be able to quantify bone density, or DEXA, you need to look at the lumbar spine vertebrae, L1 to L4. And in order to label those vertebrae, if when we tried to do it in a single network, we got to less results. But when we provided information in a sense of the perfect sagittal section, clues from the coronal section, the same, like there is this section and there is this section, gave a lot of information. And when we highlighted the bones, the ribs gives another good signals on where the vertebra is. And also we provided the data coming out from the first network that knows only to segment vertebrae, but doesn't really know how to label them. And this generated high accuracy results that we could use to quantify for bone density and generate DEXA scores. So you know what? I'll use the time for another applied trick. Medical data is extremely noisy. And the problem in medical data is, how would you evaluate yourself? How would you know what is the human level ability? And if you take, for example, an imaging study, you say, okay, I'll take a consensus of 3 physicians. But if you took 3 physicians, maybe they agree on the obvious cases. So it doesn't really matter if your algorithm performs extremely well or something that is extremely obvious. On the other hand, you can ask yourself, okay, so if I'll take any of physician decision as ground truth, we are facing a situation where we're just as good as the worst physician ever. So what we built internally, and so we built an idea how to create clusters of consensuses and evaluate our algorithm versus 2 or more physicians, but understanding that there is uncertainty in their decisions. So this is very important to remember. I will quickly, well, we're bringing it to market with a lot of partners. That's another theme in the Zebra vision. It's not, we don't want to sell a single algorithm to the most paying customer. We want to put that value out in the world. So we made a commitment to provide all our current algorithm and all our future developed algorithm in a single dollar. In a sense, this is a business model that says, okay, so you're investing time and money building more algorithm, but you'll get less money because you're fixed at $1. So yeah, in a sense, it tells that if we want to eat our own dog food and walk through the vision, we're betting on the fact that this will help a lot of people around the world, and a lot of small fragments will make Zebra a successful company. So this is the end of my presentation. If you want to ask questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks.